is how I play the game! Oh my god! What the fuck?
Holy shit! That is an epic fucking intro, dude. And I have to warn everyone. Warning. What you may see right now is going to be absolutely disgusting. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
How about we start at the beginning, meaning going back to Wednesday, because I want to address something that apparently happened on my day off that I wasn't aware of, but happens all the time. As you know, there's a ton of people on the internet who just basically are out to always make me look bad no matter what it is I say and do. I'm constantly misrepresented, I'm constantly misreferenced, and I'm constantly held in a negative light, even though there's really no valid reason for it. Now, if there's a valid reason for it, that's one thing. But we've got a case here where literally, apparently, there's a group of people who are really angry with me, and I don't know why, because literally what they're angry at me for didn't happen, okay? Let's recap and go back to Wednesday's show, all right? On this very show, the Level 1 podcast back on Wednesday, I had a big segment about Elden Ring's DLC, The Shadow of the Erd Tree. At that moment when I record the podcast, which starts around 11 a.m., okay, 11 a.m. Pacific time, all right, I talked about everything that was known at the time about this DLC. The price, the features, because we had seen some of those features shown in the release trailer, and speculation. At that point, 11 a.m. Pacific time, the trailer for this DLC had only been present on the internet for 4 hours. It had released around 7 a.m. There was no other information. Everything was speculation. Now, what ended up happening was, over the course of the day, more information was released because Miyazaki, the guy behind Elden Ring and other FromSoft games, was interviewed. And when he was interviewed, he gave a ton of additional information about the DLC that was all positive stuff that, number one, is exactly what Elden Ring fans are looking for, and number two, actually answered a lot of the questions that we posed together when we were talking about this DLC back on Wednesday. So let's recap. Originally, when we were talking about this Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC, right, we were talking about some of the things that we actually saw in it, which included a new boss, you know, some new gameplay elements, etc., etc., who is Mesmer the Impaler, right, the fact that you can access the DLC, where, when you find Mikella, and Mikella's body is in that rotted cocoon down in the Mohg's Blood Palace and stuff like that. So basically, we were discussing all of that in detail, lots of hype, and by the way, if you put it into perspective, the entire segment was hype.
Sure.
Most of the things I said about the Elden Ring DLC on Wednesday were very, very positive, right? The one thing that was a question mark for me was the price. It's a $40 DLC. That's the most expensive ever expansion for a FromSoft game, or I should say a Elden Ring, a Soulsborne style game. And in previous iterations, if you looked at the price of DLCs that they had released, I think the most expensive one had been like 20. Don't quote me on that because I might be wrong, and usually the DLCs would be around 10 to 15 hours long. So I'm thinking, man, if this DLC is $40, you've got to think it's probably going to be pretty lengthy. Like if the original game was $70, well, if it was 60, I can't remember. And the original game was, you know, 80 to 100 hours long, then you would think that this DLC would probably minimum be 40 hours long, right? Maybe even longer than that, right? But again, my question was, I don't know. I'm curious, you know, how long this DLC will be.
Hopefully it's not a ripoff. Hopefully it's not, oh, because we realize there's so much hype for this DLC that we're going to charge whatever we want, right? Terrible, toxic e-beggar person.
Now, I know for a fact that Elden Ring has been very inexpensive to buy. I just don't think it's been the digital version, but I know that Elden Ring's been inexpensive to buy because I've seen copies of it listed online for very cheap, like 10 or 20 bucks, okay? But what happens is these digital marketplaces overinflate the price of the games and never drop them. So during the actual show, I attempted to go into the store and see what's the price, and I couldn't figure it out, and people revealed, oh, it's still 40 bucks. I'm like, wow, that's kind of a lot, 2 years later, to be charging 40 bucks for this game, all right? But actually, if you look online, you could get copies used for like 10, 20 bucks. I've seen it actually like clearance on sale online for like 10, 20 bucks new, but it depends on the time of year and where you're buying it from, okay? But anyway, so this is what we talked about on the show on Wednesday. Very, very positive. I'm excited for this DLC. It looks great to me. And I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm already making plans to return to Elden Ring in May because of it. So that's where we left it, right? So yesterday, as you know, I check comments that are coming in on my videos from time to time. I have to approve a bunch of them. And I start to notice a pattern. All of a sudden, I start seeing a bunch of really negative comments coming in on my podcast from yesterday. I'm like, what is going on? where are all these negative comments coming from? All right? And they're all around the same topic, okay? You are misinformed about the Elden Ring DLC. Why are you spreading mass information about the Elden Ring DLC? What is this hot take that you have about the Elden Ring DLC? It's completely wrong. You're an old dinosaur who doesn't know what he's talking about, and you're just trying to create clickbait.
He's a dinosaur of the internet. He's done. Look at this. He's falling apart.
What? So I went back and I looked at the video. The title of the video is like huge gaming news, Elden Ring DLC. It doesn't say Elden Ring DLC sucks. Elden Ring DLC is a ripoff. You know, it doesn't say any of that. It's actually a very positive titling of the video. If you actually look at the description of the video, there's timestamps. It'll tell you directly where to start watching my segment about the Elden Ring DLC. Okay? So, there's really no excuse for someone to be misinformed about what's said in the podcast. It doesn't have a clickbait title that's erroneous or negative for the sake of getting people to click on it. And you can easily access that segment of the show by looking at the timestamp in the description. And so I'm like, I'm really confused. So I continue to read the comments. And it's so ridiculous. It's like, so you're slamming the Elden Ring DLC for being $40, but how dare you slam a DLC that's 60 gigabytes in size, the size of the entirety of the map of Limgrave, DLC with 10 boss fights, 8 new weapons, blah, 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 and it keeps going on. And all of the comments are kind of like saying this now. And I'm not saying one or two. There's like dozens of comments are coming in like this. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, what happened? I'm like, I think I know what happened. Someone, of course, probably one of my idiotic haters, probably posted up an out-of-context clip or reference to my podcast, basically maybe taking the one segment where I was speculating and saying,
man, I hope it's worth $40 because it could be a ripoff. Maybe they're going to just overcharge for it because you've been waiting for so long and they know there's so much hype. Phil, listen, your behavior is toxic.
Now, that was one tiny moment of speculation amongst a giant segment of my podcast that was incredibly positive about this DLC. But how much do you want to bet that's the clip that was taken? And likely they went to, like, for example, what do you call it? They probably went to, like, a Reddit or something, right? Like a fan Reddit or something like that and posted it up there. So basically, these are people who are, like, adamantly looking to defend their game against people who slander it. Okay? Now, I'm not the biggest fanboy of Elden Ring. I'm a fan. I was very fair to the game when it came out.
Fuck you. You're a liar.
I had a ton of very positive things to say about it when it came out. I mean, it was my most played game of the year. But again, this is exactly the situation I live in. You guys got to understand, especially those of you who maybe are newer comers here, and you ask questions such as, why do so many people hate darksydephil? This is why. Because completely out of my power, completely out of the realm of anything that I've done wrong or can control, people always misrepresent me in the eyes of the public. And they'll say that I did things I didn't do. They'll say I said things I didn't say. They'll take things out of context, right? They'll take rage moments from me playing a night of fighting games where maybe twice I rage, and they'll say that was the whole stream, right? That's what they do. And so how do you combat that? When, sadly, people on the internet are so willing to become like this big defense force for the games that they're massive fans of, and they don't do any research. Because in reality, all these people that came to the video and watched it and attacked it in the comments, because the video now has like over 1,300 views. Just so you guys know, my podcast typically gets 300 to 500 views a day. That's it. If it's a more important day, maybe up to 1,000. This one obviously has big inflated views by the hundreds. So someone posted it somewhere and people came over to attack it negatively, right? So where did this come from, right? I hate to say it, people on the internet are far too leaning towards being so into defending things they like for no good reason, all right? You don't need to defend Elden Ring. Everyone knows it's good.
Like, to me, this game is work. To me, this is like, I have to really work my butt off to fucking succeed, and I don't want to do that. I want to have fun. It's work. I don't want to work to eat.
A lot of the things that people reference to say, oh, you were wrong, is information that wasn't publicly available when I did my podcast on Wednesday. They didn't even bother to watch my podcast and see what I said. Someone told them I said it, linked it, and they just went right to the video and left a nasty comment. What kind of a mentality is that? What kind of a person can you be to judge someone before you've even said what they've said? You didn't even bother to click play to see what was said in the podcast, because there's no way you could watch that segment and come out of the other side of that podcast thinking that I hate Elden Ring and I'm crapping all over it for clickbait. It was not even present in the video. at all, right? So anyway, I got it out of the way. Listen, I'm excited for the Elden Ring DLC. Really, I like all the additional information. 10 new bosses, that's a ton. 8 new weapons. I'm sure in those 8 weapons, there'll be 1 or 2 I want to try, so I might respec during the DLC and try them. That's awesome. Legacy dungeons are right up my alley. And if you remember Limgrave, that's the starting area of Elden Ring. That's the main area. There's 2 southern island areas to it that are optional, right? To the east, you go further and you get towards Caelid, but that's still considered Limgrave. And then there's the entire castle. That's at least, at a minimum, 20 hours of content, just the overworld. Now, if you're talking, there's dungeons and things in there. Remember, there's the underground well, right? There's that. And if there's more of those, just think about that. This is probably going to be 40 hours. That's great then. If it really is $1 an hour, I'm okay with that. Give me 40 hours of content for the $40 DLC price. I'll be very pleased.
My rant is over. My angry old man rant has now ended. And now we can get back to regularly scheduled content here on the stream. There's still this back here. And it's still in the back of my neck, the back of my head, the back of my mind. And it's always telling me it's WWE Champions time. I love it. I love it. Is a mobile game addict. Phil has indoctrinated children who send him money, blatantly milking for money. It's a money pit. It's gone, just gone like that. In an instant, fucking gone. I just care about money. I just can't help it. By eBay. Contributions are mandatory, but I need your help. I am appealing directly to you. No decency, no respect, no common sense, no fucking maturity. Is the guy who just doesn't get reality.